Hello, all you fabulous creative quilters, and welcome to my quilt along with my vitamin C Calico scallop shell. So today what I'm going to do is just share a little bit of information about what you need to gather up for our next video so you'll be ready to sew and ready to go. This is the block that we're going to be creating. It's got a mixture of applique by machine and foundation paper piecing. If you've never done it before, bear with me and give it a try because it is so much fun and you get such accuracy. It just makes quilting a breeze. It really does. It's fun. And the other thing we're sharing with you, especially with my vitamin C pattern, is different ways to mark and applique your shells. So be looking for a pattern to be coming out. The front page of it, it tells you exactly what you need for fabric. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about my fabric. I chose a dark blue, a medium, and a light. I did choose what I considered a sand color. And then I wish I had gotten a little bit different value, maybe a lighter orange here on my batik, but I do like this sandy brown. The rust color really accentuates the blues. So these are the three colors that I used for all of my blocks in my vitamin C quilt, but you're going to need to cut some strips and we're going to leave them as strips, even for our foundation paper piecing, because I'm going to show you a strip method to do your foundation paper piecing. You're also going to need a couple of 6-inch squares and you're going to need an actual square for your applique, but that'll come a little bit later. Some other things you're going to need is just a standard presser foot, and I recommend one that has a lot of visibility so you can see where you're stitching, both when it comes to the applique and when it comes to the piecing. And you're going to notice that this one's really nice because it also has a little bit of a groove to allow those applique stitches to go down. You're going to need a rotary cutting mat. That's very important. You're also going to need a rotary cutter with a fresh blade. Always give yourself a fresh blade. You are so worth it, and this will prevent a lot of injuries later on. You're going to want a pressing station. I happen to have a wool mat here that I use, and I like to use a little iron because some people use just a wooden iron or a roller. That's totally up to you. We'll talk about that. I like to use clips to keep my strips together and to keep things organized. Scotch tape becomes very handy when there's been an issue and you have to do a little unsewing. A small pair of scissors because our machines are very valuable and we don't want to take out any lighting. You will also need a straight edge. Now you can use, this happens to be one of a planner ruler, but it's a nice firm plastic. You can also use a chunk of quilter's plastic, template plastic to do this, or you can just use a standard note card. But this is going to be a folding device to help us get accurate piecing with the foundation paper piecing. You're also going to need to print out the foundation paper piecing pieces on what I consider newsprint or foundation paper piecing paper. Now, a lot of you are going to be tempted because of circumstances. You don't want to go get some. It's so much easier in the removal process to actually use the foundation paper piecing paper or the newsprint. You do want to use an inkjet to print your pattern out because keep in mind laser printers are heat set toners and we will be ironing on these and you don't want to be transferring these marks to your ironing pad at all. You're also going to, once you get these printed, the reason the inkjet, that it takes the heat and it doesn't smear. When it comes to getting ready for the sew along, we want you just to take some paper scissors and just loosely cut these apart. Now some of these are kind of fairly close, but I want to tell you just a little bit about this. If you can trim these up. However, when you look at this, there's going to be some actual lines. Anything that is solid with some colorization or the actual coating on this, those are going to be stitch lines. The small, and it's very small, but it's a dotted line on the outside, that becomes your seam allowance, so you don't want to cut into that. Now this piece would be ready to start paper piecing. Even though I have this excess fabric, we trim that away later when we trim up the blocks, so it's not an issue. But go ahead and get all, you're going to need actually a corner and an inside section, to make all 4 corners. So you're going to have at least 4 sheets. And if you print all of the foundation paper piecing, the one exception is you don't have to print that square center, the applique piece, because we'll actually cut that down. But if I did include it for those of you who are purists when it comes to foundation paper piecing and want to use an actual template for their center. Now you will need to make a copy of the vitamin C applique pattern, and you're going to notice that there's a placement or the right side of the pattern, and there's a reverse image. This is not a mirrored image piece, and so you're going to have both of these, and we'll talk about how to use these when it comes to sewing our project together, getting that applique prepped. Now another piece for the foundation paper piecing, I highly recommend that you get an add a quarter ruler. This is just a phenomenal ruler that I can't live without. I love it because it gives me that extra 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, and it's got this lovely lip. I don't know if you can see this, but it's got a raised lip. So when I hook it onto my note card, or if I'm hooking it onto my ruler, it just slides right in, and there's no issues, and I can just run my rotary cutter right along it. This has been one of the best investments, this add a quarter ruler. And this is what it looks like. I like it because it's thick and your fingers can go back here. They're protected. They don't have to be right on the edge. There are some add a quarter rulers, but those are really skinny and they're only probably a 1/2 inch wide. That is not what I'm talking about. Now, for those of you that are on a limited budget, yes, you may be able to get by using this as you would when we fold back our pattern, and you'll understand this later. You can line this up. It just takes a little bit more, and there's more of a chance because there's not that plastic or acrylic lip on the edge that you might accidentally skew it a bit. But these do work. I've used those in the past before I found my love of the add a quarter ruler. The last thing I want to share with you is a little bit about stabilizer and some other things. So when we do our applique piece, we're going to talk about a medium, which is a firm tearaway. Now, tearaway, there are some that look similar to tearaway, but they're not. You can always test a tearaway. It should tear easily. This happens to be a cutaway, and no matter how hard I pull, I will not be able to tear that apart. You can use a cutaway, but you're going to have to trim fairly close to your stitches behind. That kind of opens the door for you maybe perhaps to cut your applique piece. So just some things to be aware of what I'm using, just so you understand when I talk about certain features. Another product that I'm going to be using, because this is a raw edge applique, is a steam-less seam, but notice it has to say light. Light is very important because that's going to enable us to stitch through and do our applique stitches. And the last thing I want to share with you is find yourself some lovely, this is embroidery thread. This is the rust color thread that I did use on my Calico scallop. It happens to be a polyester, and it just shines and sparkles and makes that shell look fabulous. So that's all the supplies you need to get ready, plus a sewing machine. And I did it with just a standard zigzag and a standard straight stitch. So this block, I'm going to show you how to construct it. We're going to talk about foundation paper piecing, appliquing, and then we're also going to talk about sewing it all together and in doing our Y seams. Gather up all your tools, get ready. Let's have this vitamin C quilt along and have some fun doing it. And I hope you learn a lot. Be sure to subscribe to my newsletter, Linda Be Creative, and also join my Facebook group, the Linda Be Creative group, where I like to share lots of projects and hopefully can inspire you to try some new skills. Thanks, and we'll see you later.